Right now, take out your phone and imagine the map app disappears. Not the internet, not the signal, just the little blue dot. For most of you, that's it. That's the panic point. You'd stand on a street corner you've driven past 100 times and genuinely not know which way is home. This isn't a personal failure. It's not bad sense of direction. It's something that happened to your brain recently and on purpose without you noticing. Because for 300,000 years, humans navigated entire continents and oceans with nothing but their own minds. No paper, no compass, no satellite, and some of them did it better than any machine we've ever built. So what did they actually know that we don't? And what happened to that part of us? Let's start in the Pacific. In 1976, a man named Pialug climbed aboard a canoe called the Hokulea in Hawaii and sailed to Tahiti. No instruments, no charts, over 2,000 miles of open ocean. He wasn't guessing. He was reading. Pialug had been trained since childhood in a Micronesian navigation system passed down for generations. A mental map built from the rising and setting points of over 100 stars, the direction and rhythm of ocean swells, the flight paths of birds who nest on land you can't yet see, even the color of clouds reflecting a lagoon from 50 miles away. Anthropologists call this a star compass. It isn't a tool. It's memorized. Every navigator carried the entire ocean inside their own head. When Pialug's canoe reached Tahiti, dead on target, it wasn't luck. It was a skill so precise that entire island civilizations depended on it to survive, because getting lost at sea didn't mean turning around. It meant dying. But the Pacific wasn't the only place this was happening. Thousands of miles away, in the Arctic, Inuit hunters were doing something just as remarkable, reading a landscape most of us would call featureless. Researcher Claudio Aporta spent years documenting Inuit wayfinding across the Canadian Arctic, and found hunters traveling hundreds of miles across open snow with no landmarks most outsiders could even perceive. They were reading wind-carved ridges in the snow called sastrugi, always shaped by the same prevailing winds, like a compass frozen into the ground. They tracked the subtle blue tint of ice that forms over open water versus land. They used stars, yes, but also memory. A route walked once and never forgotten. One hunter could travel a path he'd taken only a handful of times, years apart, and still find it, because the land itself had become a kind of internal map, stored the way you might remember a song. And on the other side of the world, in Australia, Aboriginal communities had turned this into something even more extraordinary. Songlines. These are oral maps, routes across the continent encoded into song, story, and ceremony, some stretching over 1,000 miles, passed down for tens of thousands of years. Every landmark along the way, a rock formation, a water hole, a bend in a dry riverbed, corresponds to a verse. Sing the song correctly, in order, and you can walk across a continent you've never seen, using nothing but the words your grandparents taught you. This isn't metaphorical. Researchers studying songline navigation have found the routes are geographically accurate to a striking degree, some spanning multiple language groups and thousands of years, verified against satellite terrain data. 3 completely different environments. 3 completely different peoples, all of them holding an entire world inside their memory, with nothing written down. So here's the question that should actually bother you. Why can't we do that anymore? In the year 2000, neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire scanned the brains of London taxi drivers, people who spend years memorizing the knowledge, a mental map of over 205,000 streets in London without GPS. What she found made headlines. The taxi drivers had a measurably larger posterior hippocampus than everyone else, the part of the brain responsible for spatial memory, and the longer someone had been driving, the bigger it was. Their brains had physically changed shape, built by nothing but the act of navigating. The hippocampus isn't just for finding your way home. It's the same structure involved in memory, imagination, and, this part matters, one of the first regions damaged in Alzheimer's disease. Which brings us to the reversal nobody wants to hear. In 2017, researcher Veronique Bobot at McGill University found that people who rely on GPS for years show reduced gray matter in that exact same hippocampal region, the opposite of what happened to Maguire's taxi drivers. Habitual GPS use wasn't just making people worse at navigating. It was quietly shrinking the part of the brain tied to memory itself. We didn't just outsource a skill. We outsourced a piece of neurological real estate that used to be exercised every single day of a human life. And the brain, true to form, stopped investing in what it no longer used. Your ancestors weren't just finding their way somewhere. Every walk to a hunting ground, every trail retraced from memory, every mental note of the river bends left after the twin trees, was quietly building the exact same part of the brain that modern life has almost stopped asking anything of. We didn't lose this ability because it was useless. We lost it because we handed it to a piece of glass in our pocket, and the trade felt so small we barely noticed it happening. There's no version of this where we throw away the phone. Nobody's sailing to Tahiti by starlight next weekend. But somewhere between Mo Pialug memorizing the entire night sky and you needing an app to find a parking lot you visit every week, something quietly disappeared. Not a skill. A whole way of holding the world in your mind. Your ancestors didn't need a map because they were the map. And most of us never even noticed we stopped being one.